All right. I'm glad the chairs are up here. If the message from the Lord today strikes you at any moment in time and you want to receive prayer, in the middle of it, in the middle of whatever's going on, come get it. There is no time like right this second to do what God says, to walk in what he says. So, do not miss an opportunity today. I will not take an opportunity away from you. If right in the middle of it, you're supposed to be up here, come be up here. I'm not going to look at you like, wow, you're interrupting the sermon of Levi Browning. Do what God says when he says it. We are titling today's message, well, we'll get to the title here in just a second. But again, as of lately, we have talked about setting an example, being an example, discipleship, fellowship, training up kids, our kids, and young Christians alike. Someone like Jazz, Ray, they have a lot to do with that, just in the positions that they hold with the youth. Any of the teachers in here, each and every person. So remember to keep that in mind. Training up the next generation. And last week we talked about God bringing us through. And have you ever, raise your hand if you have ever been through something really hard? Brian, you should have had both hands up. Sitting back there with no hands. I know you've been through some hard stuff. Yeah, once or twice. Everyone in here has been through something hard. And listen, we all have that different level as well. I mean, there's some things you've been through that have been pretty hard physically, but there's things you have been through that have been really hard emotionally, mentally, spiritually. So we all have these different places we've been where we've considered it hard. How many of us have made the mistake of trying to do it on our own? Trying to do it our own way. Many, if not all, of us have made that mistake. How many of us have been that bullheaded, stubborn person that just wouldn't listen to anyone while they were going through something? It's always good when you can look out in the audience and see Gene and Sibby and both of them light up to the question, because you know what's going on there. How many of us have, as we've gone through this hard thing where we try to do it our own way, on our own, where we wouldn't listen to anyone, have also made the mistake of rushing through something? First thing that pops to your mind, yep, let's go with that. Try and try and try and try. We try and try and try and try until what? We break down. We wear ourselves down. We tear ourselves up. We beat ourselves up. And when we have got to that point, after trying to do it alone, after not listening to anyone, after being stubborn, and we've tried and we're beating ourselves up and we're not getting anywhere really fast, what do we finally end up doing? Screaming out, crying out. I can't do it alone. I need help. All right, so now's Evan's time to shine. Come up here. All right, so you're going to, again, just stand here and look pretty. Just look at the basketball goal and pretend no one's here. You'll do good. That's high fashion, Brian. I said stand up here and look pretty. This is what it looks like. All right, now, I want you to take everything I'm saying, not hypothetically. I want you to take this like it's for real going to happen. I know you're great at taking things serious. All right, so you're getting ready for an MMA fight. The fight is in 6 months for the UFC heavyweight title. Heavyweight title. It's for the championship. All right, so you being the smart, courageous individual that you are, you decide you're going to go into this with no trainer. You don't need a trainer. No coach. You don't need a coach. No equipment even. You need no equipment to get ready for this fight. You've seen the Rocky montages enough from the movies that you're probably just going to eat some raw eggs, jump some rope, hit some cows, and you'll be ready, right? Now remember, you're not taking this hypothetically. This is the next 6 months of your life. And you are set to face John Jones. All right, so we've got Evan here. John Jones is a master in the fighting styles of wrestling, Muay Thai, and striking. John Jones is 6'4", 248 pounds. His record is 27-1 with 10 knockouts and 7 wins by submission. You have walked into the cage after 6 months of eating raw eggs, running, jumping rope, and hitting cows, and yelling indistinguishable words with your mouth distorted, because that's what Rocky does in all the montages. Give me a yo, Adrian. No. He just signed up to stand up here and look pretty. So you walk into the cage. Your opponent's John Jones. Ding, ding. How do you feel? Probably dead. Okay. So we can both, can we agree? It'd probably be bad. Horrible. All right. So this is the combination. He goes hit, chokehold. What are you doing at that moment? Hit. Now you're in a chokehold.
I'm still fully functioning in a chokehold.
Not really.
Had to choke me out.
What would you do? What's the one thing that you can do at that moment? What are you going to do?
Tap out. Say it again. Tap out.
Tap out. That is the title of today's message. Tap out. Let's give a round of applause for our guy that tapped out to John Jones. You're good, bud. You agree that's probably what you'd end up doing?
I don't think I could be choked out. I mean, tapped out. You have to put me to sleep. I'm not tapping out. I can make you tap out right now.
Let's digress. I knew if I got someone up here and we used an example and we talked and did this interactive stuff that someone would, well, I could tap him out. You think a man that wears clothes like that's going to get tapped out? He's got to be ready to fight at all times. All right, so none of us would feel good in that situation, right? And think about it. He went into this with no trainer, no coach, no equipment, no nothing. How much experience, for real experience, do you have with world-class fighting? 0. Man, I appreciate the honesty. We've had members of this youth before that would have been like, oh, yeah, I fight all the time. All right, so how silly would that be? If and put any one of you put yourselves in that situation, how silly would you consider it to have 6 months to prepare and not get a trainer, not get a coach, not ever use any kind of equipment? That would be silly, right? We all agree? Dare I say dumb. It'd be dumb. I'll ask 3 different people. And I'll pick on some of the bigger guys that might. John, would you have a chance in that scenario? A very emphatic head nod, no. Ray? No. Go ahead, DJ Whitmore. No. I just want you to just do the same thing John did. He gave you the perfect example. Shake your head no, you don't have a chance. Okay, enough said. This is the dude that will debate you until you just give up. Tap out. I'll speak to the realistic son. Devin, what are your chances in that scenario? 0. Smart man. All right. So we realize that not even going for the win, but just surviving would be hard. Going through this with no trainer, no coach, no equipment, no nothing. And we all realize how silly that is, how much our chances are none. If any of us walked into that situation, if a UFC promoter came in here today and said, look, we're going to give you a chance for the heavyweight belt, but this is what you have to do. The exact scenario we've gone through. And I realize we have members of the youth that don't realize how valuable life is, that we're like, yeah, I'd do that for 10 grand. I want to live, so 10 grand ain't worth it. That's silly. Yet, how many of us do that in our Christian walk every day? It's always awesome when you mess up when your brother-in-law is here, the one you'll never not hear it from. So thank you. We wouldn't do that if our life depended on it in a ring, but we do it with our eternity each and every day. Every day. We do it without God, without prayer, without worship, without His help that He offers all the time. In each and every moment, God is there and wants to help, wants to provide. Yet we say, nope, I don't need it. But I go to church sometimes, on occasion, when it's convenient. So that counts for something, right? That's the help I need. But then we get to the hard part. And at that point, and only that point, do we finally realize, as we've been going through this hard thing, and we've been trying to do it alone, we've been stubborn, we've not listened, and it finally gets too hard to where we can't handle it, we finally yell out to God. We finally tap out and say, God, I can't do it. So often we call on God as our last resort. That is a problem. This is one of my absolute favorite passages. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. And in all your ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your path. Don't do it your way. Don't go it alone. So many of us, as God's people, struggle with that. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your paths. Anywhere in that passage does it say when it gets to be too much? Does it say, hey, when you've tried all that you can and you can't do any more, then lean on me? It doesn't say lean on your own knowledge as long as you can and then holler at me. Then tap out and I'll be there. It doesn't say that. Psalm 46:1 said, God is our refuge and our strength, a very present help in trouble. God is our refuge and our strength, a very present help in trouble. How many of y'all on a day-to-day basis have a little bit of trouble? How many of y'all on a day-to-day basis feel like you need some strength? A refuge. Someone to be there and to take care of you. Hebrews 4:14 through 16 says, seeing then that we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold fast our confession. For we do not have a high priest who cannot sympathize with our weaknesses, but was in all points tempted as we are, yet without sin. Let us therefore come boldly to the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in time of need. You know, that is one of the greatest things about Jesus Christ and being able to trust him is what? He's been through it. He came here and walked life on this earth, and he went through some things so that we could be trusting going through some things. I don't know how many people paid attention to or watched that weird shiny happy people thing. I don't know how many people watched that, but one of the craziest things from the get-go that me and Kimbo caught on was this dude is talking about marriage and children and like the way that you should be when you're married and the way that you should be when you have kids and all of these things that you should do. And the dude was never married and never had any kids. Now, I am not at all saying that God can't use that person. God can absolutely use anybody in here to teach a lesson for any of us, regardless of their background, because that's the power of God. But do you feel a little bit better trusting someone and putting your trust in the hands of someone who's been there? And Jesus Christ has. How many of y'all have been hungry? And I mean like for real been hungry. I have. You been hungry for 40 days? How many of y'all have gone through some pain, some heartache? Was it that bad? Okay. How many of y'all have had someone talk behind your back? Say some ugly things that weren't true. He died for them. How many of y'all have been put in a situation where you asked God, if you can make me not go through this, I'd really like it. But see, the difference is he said, but not my will, but yours be done. We get in these hard moments in life, and that's kind of right there where we draw the line. We trust him because he's been through it. And once we get to that point where we can't handle anymore, that's when we start tapping and say, God, 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 need you, need you. And as we ask for that help, we ask for that help on our will, based on the things that we want, based on the things that would be more convenient for us, or easier for us, or less painful to go through. Yet, Jesus did these things so that we could lay our trust in his hands, knowing that he's been through them. We can turn around and do the exact same thing. A lot of y'all have heard Granny's story and her testimony. And Granny went through some hard, rough, ugly things. She was able to then turn around and walk Sibby through a very similar thing. And by her doing that, probably helped Sibby tremendously and helped her to deal with less pain because she had someone to walk with her through that. Jesus Christ offers us that each and every day. In every situation, in every problem, we are offered that very same thing. And even when we go through something hard, what are we supposed to do? Count it all joy. It helps. It doesn't just help us. It helps the kingdom of God when we go through it the right way. And it helps that next person that comes along that needs that help, that needs that assurance, that they too have someone to trust. He has been through it. He has been tempted as we all are tempted. So we can trust him. He's been through it. He's been through the worst of it, far worse than us. Christ lived a life of submission. That is why he is exalted. He lived a life of submission, and that is why his name is above every name. He lived a life of submission, and that is why his Father called down from heaven and said, "This is my Son in whom I'm well pleased." His Father, our Father, God, opened up the heavens and said the words, "This is my Son in whom I'm well pleased." He did that after what? After an act of submission. Did he do it when he raised Lazarus from the dead? That's a miracle. That's awesome. How many of y'all have seen someone raised from the dead through the power of prayer? Did it impress God? Was God happy about it? Sure. I bet he was. Oh, y'all check that out, angels. My son just raised him from the dead. Cool. He didn't call down from heaven and say, "Hey, Jesus, good job." He did that after an act of submission. You think it's pretty important to God that we submit? He submitted completely. Kids, if you are under the age of 14, this part of the sermon is just for you. He submitted completely without back talk, without grumbling and complaining, and without limit. He submitted. His life was a model of submission. So here's an important question. You can answer out loud, or you can shake your head, or you can, ignore me, whatever. Was Jesus tempted? Are we tempted? He submitted with submission, right? Why don't we? So the Webster definition of the word submission is the action or fact of accepting or yielding to a superior force or to do the will or authority of another person. That is the world's definition of submission. My definition is much, much easier. I got to praying about this yesterday, and I was like, what's the easiest way I could define submission for me? And yours may be different, but this is mine. To come under the Lord's authority, under his wisdom, and under his power at all times. That to me is submission. And it doesn't sound like a bad person to submit to. How much power does he have? How much wisdom does he have? How much authority does he have? Sounds like a pretty wise decision to submit there. The number one problem, this is the important note of the day. The number one problem that we have with living a life and practicing submission in our day-to-day is our complete lack of humbleness. Our lack of humbleness. And make no mistake about it, it is a plan of the enemy. How many of y'all have ever heard Matt Clark say the words, "Our kids are under attack"? If you've ever been in here on a Sunday, you've heard it. He's not wrong. They have been for years, for generations. But I'm going to open up your eyes today to something that maybe you haven't considered one of the attacks. How many of your kids have received a participation trophy? Presley, did you get a medal for soccer? Yes. The reason she laughs is this is a season-long deal. She played in one game. She got an assist to that game. You know how she got the assist? The goalie from the other team punted the fire out of the ball, hit Presley in the back of the head, rolled to her teammate, who was the best player on the team, and bam, he did the whole bend it like Beckham thing. Off her head. She got an assist. Yet she was little, so what? She got a participation trophy. Nana literally yelled to Presley during the game, "Go get the ball! Go get the ball!" Presley runs 3/4 of the way down the field, grabs the ball, runs it to Nana. "I got the ball." Did that happen? She danced a lot. Does that kid, I'll ask you directly, did you deserve a medal? No. Okay. So participation trophies, that's part of what I'm talking about, as silly as that may seem today. But what about social media? All the teenagers that have a ton of social media, what is that? What is social media? What is it mainly about? 3 words. Attention, attention, and attention. I don't care what anyone says that has it. That is at least 80% of the reason anyone's on it. What about the gold stars that our kids get for every homework assignment that's turned in? Like, you didn't even have to do good on it. You just had to hand it in. Good job. You can't spell your name and you're in 5th grade, but you handed it in. That's a problem. And it happens. What does a lot of this lead to? And this is happening. We've seen it where I work. I'm sure a lot of y'all have in your workplaces. It leads to insane, crazy workplace expectations. How many of y'all have seen like a 23, 24-year-old kid come into your workplace and say, "I demand this"? And they're wanting more money than the dude who's been there for 30 years. They're wanting more vacation than the person who's been here for 30 years. I've seen it with my own eyes. It's insane. It's entitlement. Yes, very much so. Or what about the sense of being better than they actually are? All these participation trophies, all these gold stars, all this social media where you have followers that you've never met. The enemy's plan in this is so that you will rely on yourself rather than God. If you get participation, think about this. How many people make it in the NFL? How many people make it in the NBA, MLB, Premier League soccer, UFC? Pick whatever sports you want. Let's diversify, because I always talk about sports. How many of y'all are your kids are going to end up being brain surgeons? It's about the same chance. If that's God's will, let it be done. But how many of y'all's kids are going to be an astronaut? Jace, you said you are? You're going to be an astronaut. Pretty sure they're both scared of heights. All right. But listen, the point in this is, let's say your entire high school, middle school, and pee-wee career, you've been given this medal or this trophy at the end of every single season, and you get into a university, you decide you're going to try to walk on, and for the first time in your life, someone's like, hey, you're not any good. Sorry. Bye-bye. That's a hard pass. You're not Razorback material. But my JV coach gave me a medal. We are setting our future generation up for failure with as easy as we are on them. The world will not be that easy on them. Our expectations have got to change. They have got to be different. And I don't mean according to sports. I don't mean according to their academics. I mean according to the kingdom of God. The kingdom of God does not need soft, little, whiny kid Christians who whine every time they don't get their way. They need young Christians being trained to submit to the authority of God first and their parents second. The biggest reason the enemy uses this tactic is because it works. The whole game plan here is to make sure that Sibby relies on Sibby. It's no different than what happened in the garden. The first temptation, the first sin, it was so that they would believe in themselves. They would have the knowledge of God. That was his first attempt to make man sin, and it has been working ever since. If you rely on yourself, you don't have to rely on God. It is important that we learn submission, that we walk in that we display that. So, to end this, I'm simply just going to ask us all to do what Evan did so well this morning. Just tap out. There's no shame. And I'll be the first one to stand up here and tell you, there's no shame in tapping out and saying, God, I cannot do it alone. This is too much for me. I cannot handle it. I'm not good enough. I hate to break this to you if you've never heard it. You're not. None of us are. Jesus Christ is the only one who was, the only one who is, the only one who ever will be. It is important that that is the person that we yield to, that we submit to. that we give all of our trust. Every single one of us have been let down by a human being. That's going to be the case from time to time. God will never, ever let you down.